So after about 4 years of smoking, I finally quit on Monday. It's Wednesday right now at the time of filming this, so 2 days strong. I've tried quitting many times before, but I just wasn't confident, or I just didn't feel like I was ready yet. And the thing about confidence is you can't fake confidence. I mean, you could pretend to be confident and say, I'm going to quit smoking, but really on the inside you're freaking out. It will never work. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be confident on the outside, what you show to people, but also be confident on the inside. You can't be like, I'm going to stop. I know it. I know I just have to fight my hardest battle this time and I'll get through it. I know it'll be really hard, and I think I could do it. You have to be dead comfortable. You have to be like, I'm going to stop. You can't be smoking a pack a day and then at a party you and your friends make a pact saying, this is going to be my last cigarette and I'm never going to smoke a cigarette ever again. If you're smoking a pack, then obviously you have quite the deep connection and attachment to this cigarette. So I don't think you're going to be that comfortable the next day when you say, well, I quit. I'm going from 25 cigarettes a day to 0. I just have to push myself. That will never work. After a while, it will feel like, I don't know, kind of feels like you're drowning or something. You could say, oh, I'm just going to hold my breath and break the world record. And you could say that, and you could go underwater for, I don't know, a few minutes. Not even, like probably a minute. At first you might be like, I'm confident, this is actually working, but after a couple minutes you need that air. You need that air and you will eventually just submerge out of the water. This is the same with cigarettes. If you have an addiction to cigarettes, you might logically be able to say, hey, I don't need this cigarette. But psychologically you're addicted, so your body feels like it needs this cigarette, just like your body feels like it needs food. And your body feels like it needs food because it really does need food. But logically, you know, you don't need a cigarette. But deeper in your brain, your subconscious and your pleasure sensors of your brain that aren't the logical part of your brain, say you need these cigarettes. So you can't just have a pack and just say, oh, I quit. I actually did some reading on this, and they say that most people who end up quitting smoking actually do it cold turkey. They don't do the gum thing or the patch thing. The thing about nicotine gum or electronic cigarettes is you're still getting that nicotine, so you're still going to be addicted to nicotine. And let's face it, I know a lot of smokers, and you gotta be honest with yourself. Chewing gum or electronic cigarettes just isn't as good as a cigarette. So you're still going to be addicted to nicotine, but eventually you're going to be like, I'm tired of this stupid piece of plastic. I'm going to smoke a real cigarette, even though it's worse for me. I guess like an electronic cigarette is good when you're trying to cut down or something, and you don't want tobacco and smoke going into your lungs. But it's not going to fix anything long term. It's only a short term temporarily solution if you want to keep on smoking and you want to give your lungs a rest for a bit. So I chose to use the Wean Off Method, and I've actually been slowly weaning off cigarettes for quite a while, like over half a year. I started slowly cutting down bit by bit by bit. So what I kind of see it as is I'm in a plane, and I slowly lowered myself down for a nice soft landing, and now I could just hop off. I'm not forcing myself after like smoking 5 cigarettes a day to suddenly stop. That's like jumping off the plane and you'll just crash and hit the ground. Or at least you'll probably won't quit. I'm just telling you the truth. If you smoke a lot and you smoke every day, and that's part of your lifestyle, and you just decide to suddenly quit, and you, in your mind, kind of see yourself as a smoker, you're not just going to go from a smoker to a non-smoker the very next day. You have to kind of classify yourself as a smoker, that lately doesn't smoke as much, and you're not really a smoker anymore. You have the occasional cigarette, and then, okay, you're non-smoker. You can't just go smoker, non-smoker, completely life-changing. So the first thing I decided to note was my triggers. That's basically every time I smoked a cigarette based on habitual behavior. It's just a feeling that came up every time I did this certain action. What I mean by this is I had a cigarette every time I went into my car. So it came to the point that every time I went into my car, instinctively, I felt like lighting up a cigarette. Now, the thing about this is I might not have necessarily even had a craving before I went into the car. But as soon as I went into my car, that's usually what I'd always do. I'd take out a cigarette and I'd smoke it, just because I like smoking while driving. It's just, I always found it enjoyable. But what I noticed was I actually drive a fair amount in my day-to-day life, because I drive on my way to work. I usually go out for lunch, so I'll drive somewhere. Then I'll drive home. So that's 3 car rides. So that's an automatic 3 cigarettes. Then I'd also smoke at home a couple, and then like when I'm with my friends I'll probably smoke. So like that's like a 6 or 7 a day. Not as bad as a whole pack that some people would smoke, but still I find that quite a bit. So I always find it easier to change a behavior or do something when you just have one simple rule that kind of takes care of a lot. So basically something easy to keep in mind that's very efficient. What I mean by this is I set the simple rule: you're not allowed to smoke in your car. There we go. That's the smoke I had on the way there, smoke I had on the way home, and smoke during my lunch. I mean, I could still smoke outside of this, but those habitual ones where I just smoked because I'm doing this same routine every day, that automatically cut down my smoke consumption. So I made that rule about November of 2011. So New Year's 2012, I always make some New Year's resolutions because I'm just really goal oriented, and I don't know, I made a few for New Year's, and one of them I decided, I think pretty much last minute, was I'm going to stop buying packs of cigarettes. First of all, that saves on my money consumption because I'm not spending money on smokes. Like I'd spend maybe $20 a week on smokes when I was smoking. So that there cuts down on my consumption. Like obviously I don't have smokes on me. Problem is, and this is also what I came into play, as I said, it's really hard to just stop smoking cigarettes. And I knew this when I made this decision that most of my friends smoke. There's people I work with who smoke that I'm friends with. My roommate smokes. Most of the people I know, or at least groups I hang out in, has smokers. So I knew that not buying packs of cigarettes would severely cut down my consumption, but it doesn't mean I was trapped with no cigarettes. There's nothing worse than having the feeling of not being able to have a cigarette when you're craving one. I knew this would help me cut down too, because I'd feel guilty asking for cigarettes all the time. Rule of reciprocity, I can't just be a bum. But the thing is, all my friends knew I was doing this thing, I was cutting down. So what they would do is feed me cigarettes. So basically cigarettes would always be available to me. And I still smoked quite a bit. Like sometimes I'd smoke 5 or 6 cigarettes a day, and I didn't buy any of them. People would just give them to me. My friends are just generous, and I'd like to thank my friends, first of all, for helping me quit by feeding me smokes, if that makes sense. All I mean by that is they always made them available for me. Like, they were always available, but I didn't have to carry them around. I hated carrying them around because I'd smoke a bunch. But I liked the fact that they were always available, so I knew if I needed one or felt like stressed out, I could always get one, which helped me a lot. So I found that even though I wasn't buying packs, I still smoked like 6 or 7 a day, just because people would give them to me. So I started cutting down even more. I made the decision a little bit later on, maybe February or something, to every time I have that craving, make the decision. Am I really feeling a craving, or can I just wait till the next cigarette? A lot of the times I'd smoke just out of habit. I'd smoke because all of my friends are going out to have a smoke. Or I just have a smoke because someone offered it to me, or it just felt like that time of day to have one. And I realized that I'm not even craving a cigarette, or I wasn't even thinking of a cigarette before someone offered it to me. I'm just doing this purely out of habit. And do you know what habits are? Habits are just things that you do over and over and over again that eventually become a behavior. And the way this works is when you do something, your brain is actually kind of learning what you did. So it actually makes neural connections. So if you continue to do that same action over and over again, sort of like practice, if you consider smoking practicing, it's kind of the same wavelength. Those connections become stronger and they get harder to break. So imagine, if you will, a grass field. On one side of this grass field is a house, and then the other side of the grass field is a lake. Now, the people living in this house want to go swimming in this lake. So they start walking through the grass. So a few months pass, and you start to notice that there's some beaten down paths, because after a while of walking through the grass, you know what happens, paths start to form. After a while, the tenants in this house keep walking on the same path over and over again, because it becomes the most convenient way to get through this grass field. At first, people just walked through and made the paths. But after the paths are formed, obviously you're going to walk over the beaten paths. That's kind of the way habits work in your brain. These neural pathways in your brain become a lot easier to travel through once they become a habit. And that's why learning new things is so hard, because you don't have a path to travel on through your brain, if that makes any sense. Like, imagine the first time you started driving. It was really hard. It was frustrating. You're like, how do people do this? You're jerky. You don't have any hand coordination because you have to use the brake system over here and use your right foot to drive and gas. But once you get the basics down, once you get all the habits down, it becomes automatic. I don't consciously say, I'm going to shut off my lights, turn the key, put it into park. I just do it. It's just part of my process that I do automatically when I shut off my car, because I park and shut off my car a lot, and it's just become habit. And I probably do it in the exact same order every time. I think I turn off my key, turn off the light, then I shift it into park. It might be different for other people, but that's just the way that I've started doing it. It became a habit, and now I do it automatic whenever I park. There's really no reason at this point why I couldn't just quit. I think it was on Friday I decided, okay, I'm going to quit on Monday. I'm going to give myself the weekend to smoke as much as I want, but I'm going to quit Monday. And I knew the thing about weekends, or diets, especially in diets, you notice when you say, okay, I'm going to start a diet on Monday. Like, say it's a Friday and you say to yourself, I'm going to start a diet on Monday. I could eat whatever I want on the weekend, but I'm going to start dieting, strict diet on Monday. On the weekend, you gorge twice as hard because you know you're not going to be eating junk food during the week. So your mind's just like, well, better get this out of my system. I'm going to eat 3 pizzas, a couple hamburgers, and just gorge yourself. And then Monday comes and you feel like crap because you ate crappy food, so you're just like, another day, I'm craving this junk food too bad. The thing I like to do when I say I'm going to have a diet on Monday is keep that in mind and maybe eat a little bit crappy, but eat half good. I'll eat like a lot of vegetables and eat well. And if I'm having a particular craving, then I'll indulge in that craving, but I won't really indulge in it and binge eat like I did when I was younger. And I'm sure a lot of other people do. So, and I notice this happens when people say they're going to quit smoking. Like, oh, this is my last pack of cigarettes, let's smoke 50 tonight, and then quit by the morning. And then the morning comes, they really crave it in the morning. When you smoke and party and wake up in the morning, then you're gonna crave a smoke the next day. I'm just saying, like, and I see it happen, and I see people who claim they're going to quit that night smoke a whole bunch the next day because they smoked 25 the night before. So if you're going to quit something, at least wean yourself off in that break period. If you say you're going to quit Monday, at least wean yourself off or kind of ease yourself into it a little bit. You know what I mean? I hope you know what I mean. I think that's the end of my rant. This is probably going to be a 15-minute video. I've been craving a cigarette because the whole time I was doing this vlog, I've been talking about cigarettes, so I'm craving one a bit. But really, there has to be that point where you go through that period. So I just gotta suck it up, I guess. Not the smoke, not the cigarettes. Don't suck up the cigarettes. Just suck it up. Don't be a wuss. Alright. Peace. Marino videos.